Welcome to the ZiaWoolz StudioBuzz Podcast, episode 38. I apologize for not having been back here in a long while, much longer than intended. I did film an episode in Germany, but it was just crazy, the uploading. I had the worst tech problems, so I just didn't get around to recording two. And I thought, well, since mom's not speaking English and she cannot speak to you directly, I thought maybe you just, if you want to see mom, which I know many of you do, take a peek into the last episode in German that I sent from mom's house, and you get to see her. You get to see her socks that she made in the past weeks, and maybe a glimpse of the garden also. Yeah, that was before it got crazy hot. I did not knit as much as I usually do in Germany. It was just too hot. I mean, also, mom doesn't have screens in front of her windows, so at night when you could have the windows open, you couldn't really do that and have the light on and knit, which I often did in the past years, because then you would have all the bugs in your room, and I don't like that. So yeah, in the beginning, and that brings me to my first finished object. I did finish my sweater, which I brought to Germany thinking, well, if I bring the sweater, because I will go to Hamburg, where it's usually more chilly than in the more southern part or middle where I am with mom, I will probably get a good use out of the sweater. And so I finished the sweater before I went up to Hamburg, and I did wear it quite a bit. So let me pull it out. And I am talking about the cumulus blouse. Gosh, why can I not say that word? Cumulus blouse by Petite Knits. And here is my version out of a very normal woolen yarn. It has a deep V-neck, and I showed it to you in the previous episodes when I was working on it, and I had already talked about the few modifications that I did. Like, one of them was I had kind of guessed from the pictures that the sleeves would be quite wide here, which I didn't really want to that extent, so what I did was, when you start, I reduced, that's the word I'm looking for, I reduced the stitch count for the sleeve section. It's a top-down sweater. So that made me end up probably, I would guess, with an inch less in width of the sleeve. And also, I didn't want a puffy sleeve, which I think the original pattern would get you to have. And so what I did is I did the math for my length and did regular decreases. I never even compared to the original pattern how she suggests to do the decreases. I also, because I was narrower already in the ribbing, the end at the end of the sleeve, I decreased less stitches. in the last round, which she has you do quite a bit before you do the I-cord. I already get a little bit of pilling on this. Do you see me picking here? So another thing that I changed was the I-cord on the bottom. First of all, I picked the length that I wanted to have. I did not even pay attention to the original instructions. I then also did some decreases, not as heavily as asked for in the pattern, and then I did the I-cord edging the way she tells you to do. It's a 4-stitch I-cord, 3 stitches and then 2 together. I have noticed that the bottom curls up ever so slightly. I am curious to see how this is going to go in the long run, because I only gave it a quick block before I left for Hamburg. And but the funny thing is that I did a thinner I-cord for the sleeves and the neckline, which is 2 stitches and then 2 together. And these don't curl that much to the outside. I think it lays much nicer. You can see it. I mean, the sleeves, it would be fine anyways, I guess. But the neckline, can you tell? It's really nice and flat. So the yarn I used is Kelborn Woolens Scout. And I bought the yarn in San Francisco. But the funny thing is I thought I would use 5 skeins, but I only used 4. Pardon the break. So that was Kelborn Woolens Scout, and I kind of sit super low. I don't know if you can actually see the length of this when I put it on. Okay. This goes kind of, well, it was the right length for me. Sorry, you can't tell. I should put a photo up, but I haven't taken pictures with this yet. Another finished object, which I brought you, is something where I can't remember if you've seen me where I had just started this, or if I only showed you the yarn. But I have finished the Drifter shawl by Tammy Gore, and it is, I have knitted this out of ZiaWoolz Roadrunner in 2 colorways that I came up with in May, and that are just really so nice. Wait, what's the right side? Yes, here it is. Oh my goodness. It is so beautiful. I really love how this turned out. I made it on 3.5 millimeter needles, and I did not do a gauge swatch because I just knit with a needle that gives me the fabric I like. Tammy's pattern can be made, I mean, the shawl can be made with either 2 colors or 3 colors. But I couldn't tell you if the 3 color version is also larger. I just had these 2 colors that I wanted to use together. And yeah, and so that worked out just great. And what was I going to tell you? So what I like is that the dark blue color picks up these, has these hints of a rusty color that pick up the orange in the other color. And this is a singles yarn that I used, Roadrunner, ZiaWoolz Roadrunner, and this colorway is called UnderDawg, and this is the colorway Chipotle. And yep, can't say anything bad about the pattern. Loved it. Great pattern, written very well. And I realized when I was done, I was a little bit worried in between that it might get a little bit too small, but I think it was because it was kind of shallow. That's why I underestimated the length of it. And actually, I like a shallow shawl, or I don't mind a shallow shawl if I get the length. And I think I have everything I want in a shawl in this one. I mean, I can totally wrap it a couple of times around me, and I can still tie a little knot here, as you can see. And no, I will not keep this on my neck because we're in New Mexico and it's hot. So that was The Drifter by Tammy Gore. My 2 finished objects, sweater and a shawl. The shawl actually I blocked just yesterday, woven the ends, blocked it, and it dried so fast because I had it out here in the studio in the garage. And then and it dried super fast. So what else have I been working on? I brought 2 pairs of socks to Germany, one of which I did not touch. Who was I kidding? Thinking that I would finish 2 pairs of socks. It's just not happening. I am knitting socks with a new colorway, another new colorway, also in ZiaWoolz. That's my Tau Space, which is a Corriedale, superwash Corriedale blend. And I love how it knits up. It has, there's a lot of yellow and orange in there, and I dyed the color specifically to have a sock yarn for the wife of my friend who made the hap stretcher for me, the frame for haps that he gifted me, where I told you that before. I mean, I asked him if he wants a pair of socks, and he said, oh no, but my wife loves socks, so if you want to make her a pair. Great guy, right? So the socks are actually on the last stretch. The heel is turned, and I just have to finish the foot and then the toe, because the other one, ta-da, is finished. And I'm going to hold it a little bit closer to the camera so you can actually see the subtle speckling in this. Hopefully, I should say. I just love how this looks like. Very sunny, very bright, and those are my friend's favorite colors. And I'm very certain that she's going to love them. And yes, she can't wear them now, but it's going to get cold eventually at some point. These were the socks. Okay, then I You know how things go sometimes. You plan on doing certain things and then something else comes along. In this case, it was my daughter who saw a whole a row of these crocheted bags in a store, and she's like, "Oh, that's so cute, Mom. I want one of those." And I said, "I'll make you one." You know how it is. We always love to make something for our kids, and especially when they say, "Oh, we love this," but and then we say, "Yes, I can make you that. I am this amazing maker that can do this for you." So, in my case, I started making the bag for her, but oopsie. Well, I thought I could just wing it, but the winging, I don't like what is becoming of it. But I wanted to show you where I am at least before I frog it, because it's kind of a mandala, right? Oh, the crochet bags in that store were all the way with the netting. I thought it would probably not hurt to have a solid bottom before I went up for the bag, but this is just, I think I made two mistakes. I think what I did here was I made a flat bottom. And I think it would not hurt if it already was slightly rounded. Also, when I started the mesh is the word. When I started the mesh part, you can totally tell how it still gains a lot of width. So I don't know if it just bugs me because the bottom of the bag is not right, or if altogether it's too wide. I'm not so sure, but I didn't even show her how far I am because I'm not far at all, but I will frog and redo. And let me see if this is the yarn. Well, my glasses are somewhere there. Oh yes, this was leftover yarn that I found at Mom's, where it's kind of like a yarn store. And this has 75% cotton and 25% linen. Also, I had about 1.5 and 1 3/4 balls, and I started the second one, and I don't think this would be enough, honestly. May have to switch yarns. But the yarn name is Linda, and the brand is Volbut, which is kind of like a discount affordable yarn line. Actually, Volbut, I think they have all kinds of crafty stuff, craft supplies that and it's not a physical shop, it's a mail order only. I hope I'm not making that up, but that's what I feel like it is. It's one of those things that started in Germany after I had moved to America. Okay, that was the bag, the socks. Where else? Oh, oh man, you know how it is. You finish something and then your juices get going and you're like, oh, what am I going to cast on? And then I decided, at least for a little bit, I will be very reasonable and I will finish, as I have been saying for the past weeks or maybe months, I will finish my whiteout shawl by Melanie Berg because I love that thing. I want it done. Oh, that's even the wrong picture. I should show you this one. It's so beautiful. and you may remember me working on this, and of course it took me a while because I'm making it with 3mm needles and lace yarn, one of which I don't know where the ball the tag went, but it's a lace yarn with a content of sea cell. So super interesting. I think the first time I knit with lace yarn, and then mom's shawl that I gifted her, the dark green one, that was the next one, but this was actually really the first. And you're probably going to remember this if you've been around for a while. This is how it looks like. The orange is dyed by me, and that is a different yarn which has, I believe, an alpaca content and a silk content, and I dyed it to match and to go with the shawl. I know the low contrast is not for everybody. I like it. I have stripes of the orange alternating the other color, which is a lot more variegated, with pink and a warm brown. Hope you can see that well. Yeah, so I had stopped before I started the final lace section because I felt like I want to be able to stick with it and kind of like get going in one stretch, which now obliges me to get that finished, because now I started and I can't put it down, so I can actually finish it. Because so the thing with this lace pattern is it's gorgeous, right? I mean, that's a beautiful stitch pattern. So let's look at this one. The one I'm on is of course going to be wider. I made two rows that are, I've made two that are just knit back and forth, but now I've made 4 in the lace pattern, and that takes me a while. That takes me a while, one row. And it reminded me why I really didn't want to start without the intent of finishing it, because it really takes you a while to get into the rhythm of the lace, and it's definitely not a relaxing knit, because you're like, you constantly, especially that first row, I kept looking at the chart to make sure I'm not knitting anything wonky. I put in these stitch markers, of course, just to know where I am and to be able to figure out mistakes faster if my stitch count is off at some point. Yeah, so back to this later today. Last but not least, spinning. I am not participating in the Tour de Fleece because I am never consistent enough, and I don't watch it enough to feel like, okay, I sit and watch the Tour de France and then I spin at the same time. However, I told you I have a new drum carder, and finally a very fine one, which I wanted because I mostly work with fine yarns when I spin. And so in between my periods of dozing, knitting, and giving myself to the jet lag, I also did a little bit a little bit of fiber playing on the drum carder. What I like to do is I could spin from a bat, but also I like to spin from, and now I'm not sure what the correct term is. I know normally what you roll off the hand cards is called a rollag, but I know that there are also poonies, and I don't know if the poonies are just the skinny rollags, or if poonies are always made from cotton. I'm just not sure. So I meant to figure that out earlier today, and then I got sidetracked. So poonies, rollags, that's what I've been making, and I'm putting in a picture for you so you know what I'm talking about, because I have played with different kinds where I roll them off the drum carder more densely, or where you kind of pull it off onto a rod, and or it's kind of tight, and others where it's more loose. And then I also experimented with fatter ones where I used half the fibers that are on the drum versus others where I did only a quarter of the fibers on the drum or a third. I have just been playing. I usually picked one solid color and combined it with a lot of different bits in different colors. And I have spun them all up right away just to get a feel for how the spinning works when you wind it off differently, more densely or fatter and whatnot, like everything I told you now. And I have a nice little bundle of skeins already, and here they are. I'm trying to come a little closer. Hopefully you can see. So I haven't paid attention to fiber content really, except for this guy over here, which has a base of a light blue alpaca, which I had purchased at Albuquerque Fiber Arts Fiesta from Mora Fiber Mill here in New Mexico. That's where they're located. So I feel like that is maybe the longest one of them all, which would kind of fit the alpaca, because alpaca just doesn't have that crimp that pulls together other fibers. So there was one skein that was really significantly shorter after washing, and I bet it's this one. But again, I didn't keep track of the fibers I put in. But I enjoyed spinning these so very much. This one I thought, oh, here's another lint yarn. Remember my lint sweater from last year? This looks really like dryer lint yet again. But so pretty. I do not know what I want to make with all these. I'm gonna weigh them and label them, and I think that one bat off the drum carder has roughly about an ounce of fiber. So I assume each one of them, my little skeins here, has about an ounce, and I did not measure my yardage yet. but they will be labeled and they will go into my stash in my cedar chest. I think where I keep some special hand spun mainly. And I am already tempted to, yes, I am such a child. I am tempted to make some doll clothes because, well, I may as well tell you, I have one doll which is a collector's doll. And I will probably show her at some point. She is in a box in my closet and rarely sees the sunlight. My daughter had a lot of dolls, and well, actually she still has. We kept them all, and I have made a lot of doll clothes for her dolls. But of course, I mean, she's almost 18, so that's over. So I think that now is the time to knit for my doll. Also, one of hers, I when we were sorting and organizing things to keep and to give away, I took out one of her dolls, which is a German classic. So that one is now sitting in my studio. And maybe I may also make something for her. I just don't know. I also did doll clothes for Barbies in the past, which I've always enjoyed, but that was usually from very, very, very fine yarns and really with very thin needles, thinner than sock knitting needles. So 2 millimeter needles, I remember, probably maybe even thinner. I don't know. Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, super exciting to have these things done. And I, there will probably be something coming, some new cast on coming shortly, because I'm already thinking about it. Oh, I'm so bad. I have some ideas. Cardigan, another sweater. You can never have too many cardigans, right? I'm sure you agree. Well, I have come to the end of this. I have purchased some more fibers and I have also some new yarn, but I was thinking I'm going to show you those when I'm actually working with them, which will hopefully happen soon. And in the meantime, I'm just hoping that you are also working on something beautiful and that you're all well, and I say happy knitting.